going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Leading Leaders. I apologize to all my loyal listeners and video watchers. Man, last week was crazy. My kid graduated kindergarten. We had finals in college, and in between all of the schedule changes and all those things, I just was not able to publish another episode. But here we are in Arvada, Colorado, and with a none other than a very special guest that's near and dear to me. She does everything on the background parts of everything of my life. She is my beautiful wife, my beautiful bride. Without her, I'd be nothing. Makala Haney, will you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm married to you. Israel and I have been together for 15 years, but we've been married for 12, almost 13 in a couple weeks. We have 4 wonderful boys, Remington, Stetson, Langston, and Jensen. I recently got a new job. I will be the kindergarten aide for Barnum Elementary. Super excited about that. That was a prayer answered. I did the daycare last year. It was wonderful to be part of my kids' school and the community out there, and just they all made me feel like I was family. So that's my life. I don't really do anything other than manage the Haney crew.
Okay, well, we'll kick off these questions with a very important question that I have for you is, what do you feel like God had, or why do you feel like God has called you into youth ministry?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you because I've always hated teenagers, hated being a teenager. And that possibly could be why he called me, because I seriously, honestly hated being a teenager. I either wanted to go back and be a kid again, or I wanted to just grow up so fast. And um, I apologize in advance if I cry, because I'm a crier. So there will be moments in here that I do cry. Um, Whenever we got the call to be children's ministry, I understood that. I understood because we had kids. I understood that we needed to raise up a generation to become leaders, to become um, the next generation to follow Christ. And so that made sense to me. So when we left that position and we started at our new church at Starting Point, when pastor came to us and was like, I'd like you guys to be in youth ministry, it was like, oh, okay. And we knew that there was already like a dedicated youth pastor, um, Lindsay and Landon, and there wasn't a running youth group at the time because of COVID. So we kind of went in all at once, every leader that he had called, and we kind of flew by the seat of our pants. And we found our groove. And I want to say it was, I think it was after the first camp that I went to, which we had been doing youth at that point for almost a year, that I understood why I was there. There were kids that needed the connection and the trust of an adult to lead them and guide them, but also to confide in. And I've become that for a few of our youth kids. And it's an honor. Honestly, it's an honor that God would place me in these kids' lives to be a role model or be a confidant or just for advice. And so I think that I'm there to help them through struggles that I went through. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Yep. Like with anxiety and depression, I've gone through it so I can help them through that. And I think that the youth from about age 12 to 18 is often forgot about because we think that they're grown enough to know about God and they're not a kid anymore, so we don't have to teach them Bible stories. But that's the age where we really need to come in and impart our wisdom so that they can go be leaders, so that they can go and find their calling. That's my biggest goal being in youth ministry, is to help these kids find their calling and create servants for the Lord. It's the ultimate goal.
I definitely agree 100%. Whenever you said that that they're often forgot about, because I find that when they hit that age of in between 12 and 18, that it's just like getting thrown into leadership. You know, you get thrown into leadership as that good luck era. And I've literally heard some leaders say, oh, well, once they're saved, you know, that now it's their responsibility to learn what it's about to be a Christian. Man, no, that's not the role.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like when you're called to be a leader, you're here to help somebody through their struggles, help them through all of these problems that they're facing. Because, you know, guess what? Just because you have a title or hold a position in a church doesn't mean that you're not going to go through some struggles of your own. And now that you've gone through that struggle, you'll be able to help somebody through their struggle. And so it's very big in my eyes, and very huge, I think, in the church, that we be able to pass on our knowledge to each other. That's what the whole body of Christ is about.
Yeah.
You know, if we can't help each other, then what are we doing? And it starts with our kids and our youth. If we can't help them grow into adults, into the full body of church, that's where they begin, into the body of churches and kids and youth, in nursery even. And if we can't start implementing those things there, because, you know, you've seen it just as well as I've seen it, even in FCA, you know, kids coming down with, man, suicidal ideation, anxiety, depression. And we've had leaders that say, man, I didn't even know kids struggled at this age. And you're like, dude, I had anxiety and depression when I was 8, 10. Like, dude, kids struggle with it at a very young age.
I think we often put blinders up from that age of 12 to 18. We're like, okay, well, we've gotten to the age of accountability, right? We've taught them everything we know. We taught them about Noah's Ark, and we taught them about David and Goliath, and we taught them all of these stories, but have we actually taught them the moral of those stories? What David went through to be a man after God's own heart? What Noah had to do and go through to build that ark, be ridiculed, go through this, basically this life of being the black sheep or the outcast of his community, all for his calling. And we tell these fluffy little stories to these kids, and we expect them at the age of 12, when they go to youth, to be like holier than thou. And that's where we get lost. We get so caught up in, well, they know the stories. Let them figure it out.
Yeah.
No, that's where we come in and we dig deeper, and we say, all right, we're going to go over Noah's Ark, but we're going to do it a different way. We're going to show you and relate it to you on how and what he had to go through to follow his calling. And we're going to tell you about David and Goliath and what it means to conquer your giants. And society has labeled 12 to 18 as functioning humans. And oftentimes they're labeled as young adults, and that's an age where they can still be molded and created into wonderful, wonderful humans, and just teach them to follow what God has for them. And that's what I want to do.
It's amazing. So what do you think has been the hardest hurdle for you in your ministry?
Logan will agree. I'm a control freak. I like to know every detail of everything. So when it comes to an event or a fundraiser or even a Wednesday night service, I'm always asking questions. Sometimes I feel like I'm stepping on toes because I ask questions. I often feel like, our leaders, Logan and Ricky, or Pastor and Billy, feel like I'm trying to take control of a situation when I ask questions, which oftentimes I can be hinting towards, let me take control. And that's something I'm working on, Billy. But I would say not having full control is where I struggle. Or another one is I'm grateful for the kids that trust me. But then, there's those ones who go to different people and who confide in different people. And you're like, well, why wasn't I the person you confided in? What did I do wrong? And I get that mindset sometimes. And it's not for me to get that mindset, because you or Ricky or Olivia or Brandon or whoever's working with me may have a word for that person that I didn't have. And so I have to tell myself, no, God placed that person in that kid's life for a reason. And so, sorry, this is going to be all shaky, the whole episode. I wasn't nervous and I got nervous. But control is where I struggle. And it's not that I want to be, the youth pastor, or I am happy where I'm at and I believe I'm where I'm at for a reason. And I was called to be here as an associate youth pastor. And I absolutely love my job and I love the role I play. But there are times where I'm like, let me take over and I just want to know everything. And I think Logan and I are a lot alike in that way. I kind of butt heads sometimes, but I think we both have such big hearts for what we want to do that when we do sit down and we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, oh, well, that's what I wanted to do. And he's like, well, me too. And so we kind of hit that spot where we're like, oh, we're on the same page. Yeah. And so I just have to get over my control freakness. That's where I struggle the most.
I'd say that's one of the things that, I've finally come to the realization that a lot of times I had to sit down and finally come to the thought process. I've even said this to you. I said it to some of my friends. It's bigger than me and it's bigger than you. Yeah. Everything that we do is we have to finally come to the realization is, dude, it doesn't matter. Like my thought on it doesn't matter because it's so much bigger than me. Mm-hmm. And it might hurt my feelings sometimes, but guess what? So much bigger than me. Mm-hmm. But and trust me, I understand completely on what you're saying, because when you feel like you're not in the loop, it drives you insane. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, I didn't know about that. That's news to me. Mm-hmm. But then again, when you sit back and you finally look at it, you're like, dude, who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
As long as we're doing what God wants us to do, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the role I hold. It doesn't matter the control that I have. As long as I do what I've been asked to do to my fullest potential for the kingdom of God, I'm doing everything that He needs me to do.
Exactly. What do you do now when you are faced with hurdles differently than you did in the past?
Well, Let's see. So now I fully go to God. I, you know, I could stub my toe and I'm like, God's gonna heal it. Like, I have that much faith. Like, it's crazy. Somebody posted the other day, and they said, it said something along the lines of, do you ever sit back and things in your life are just like, haywire, chaos, and you're so calm and so much at peace because you've seen God work miracle after miracle after miracle in your life, and you just have that much faith? I feel like that's me, because we could be low on money, we could be,
low on money,
struggling with our cars like we were a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I was just like, well, God's gonna provide. He's gonna perfect timing for everything. And I just don't have the mindset of panic anymore. I can't remember the last time I panicked, honestly. Because before I would panic. I would still go to God, but I'd be like,
still had that back worry.
When is it gonna when is the miracle gonna come through? Or can we just speed it up a little bit? And now I'm to the point where, like, okay, it's in your time. I mean, we're rolling on a flat tire, but we'll get there. We'll get the funds for it. Something will happen. And it always does. And I think I just have that much faith that I know God's going to do what he needs to in my life. And do I still have my crazy worship sessions in the shower? Definitely. But I feel like I need those moments still. Mm-hmm. And they're not necessarily a panic moment. It's more of a Holy Spirit fire moment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to be wrecked by the Holy Spirit sometimes. And it oftentimes happens in the shower. I don't know if that's just a space, or it happens behind the wheel of my car. As soon as I pull in the driveway, it's like a song comes on and God's like, don't get out yet. We're not done. And so I'll just sit there. And people drive by and be like, why are you sitting in your car? You know how many times I've gotten a text, are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm in my quiet place. So I don't panic anymore. I can't remember the last time I panicked.
That's good. Yeah, I can't, and that's one of the things, I literally just talked to you about how sad I was about not getting to go to Red Rock's Sunday service.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's one of the things I said about their preacher. Is one of the things I loved that he said was, I just don't freak out like I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I might still struggle with the things that I used to struggle with. I might still have anxiety sneak up every now and then, but God's made it where I don't freak out like I used to.
Yeah.
Because I take it to him instead of freaking out like I used to.
Right.
I don't have that. I don't blow up and freak out and get angry anymore, And I find it that God's put you in that place. Mm-hmm. And I love the way Landon says it. He, puts you in that check. You know, God puts you in check, and you're just like, man, God, you can have it. I don't want that. I don't want it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
If it doesn't bring peace, I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't want that.
And I could be going through one of the biggest battles of my life, and I can tell you, 5 years ago we did, and it put us down. Mm. And if I would have gone to God like I do now, I don't think we would have struggled as much.
No.
But
same.
For real. But I think that was a learning process for us. I think that was, everything's a God thing. Mm. Even good and bad. Everything, there's a reason for it. And so going through the miscarriage and the 2 years that were rough, I lived them for a reason. And part of it, I understand why. I know that I needed to run to God more than I did. And there's still part of it that I haven't quite figured out what the reason is. And it could be that I help somebody down the line go through the same thing I've gone through. Or, just being the ear for somebody who's going through it. Or, just being there for somebody. And that could be another reason that we went through it, so that I could help somebody through it. But until that happens and somebody needs me, I will never know if that's the reason why we went through it. But I do know that going through that and falling very far down and climbing my way out only happened with God. Only happened with God. And just recently, another big life change happened. I lost a friend, and not death, but she was a really good friend, and it shook me. I mean, you can ask Israel. It shook me because it came out of nowhere, and I had a small identity crisis. Like, am I a good friend? I had to like do a deep dive on me as a friend, but I came to the realization that God puts me places in people's lives and helps me figure out what I was there for, why it ended, and I'm okay. I feel like I squirreled, but back to peace. Things that only bring me peace. So going through these things, that's where I was. Going through these things, I still found peace. And it wasn't all like rainbows and daisies. It was rough, especially after the friendship ending. And the Holy Spirit wrecked me and was like, you have to let it go. You have to stop. You have to push past this pain to see the purpose. And that's what I did. Fell on my face in youth one night, and I left it there. And when somebody asks me about that situation or why I was down there, like I had a youth kid ask me, what's wrong? And I said, well, there's a pile of my stuff over there and it's staying there. And that's what I tell them. I had Rion ask me, and he said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm great now. And he said, well, why were you on your face? And I said, well, I don't remember getting on my face. But when I finished praying, I realized I was on my face. And at the end, I felt a complete peace. Weirdest peace I have ever felt in my life. And I still feel it to this day. Like, I can't explain it. I'm so at peace with everything. Like, I want to freak out sometimes, go back to that panic, and God's like, it's in the floor at the youth building. What are you doing? Like,
you can't pick that up anymore.
Yeah. Right. And so every time I go in, I literally look at that spot and I'm like, that can stay there. Mm-hmm. So all my anxiety and everything's in the floor.
But it's crazy that you say that that maybe someday you'll be able to use all the stuff that you went through to help somebody, because I got to use our miscarriage talking to somebody that I don't even necessarily associate with. It would technically be acquaintance, right? Mm-hmm. And because they were stuck in a situation that, like I was, I ain't gonna talk about it. Mm-hmm. I'm good, and heck, they didn't even want to talk to me about it.
Yeah.
But it was at a point where it was like, dude, just listen. All you gotta do is listen to what I have to say. Mm-hmm. You don't have to say nothing. Said, just let me tell you what I went through, and this might help you.
Yeah.
And after I was done talking, He just said a couple words. And this was like probably a 30-minute conversation,
Mm-hmm.
or a one-sided conversation, I would say. And I was just pouring my heart out to him, and I was like, dude, this is. I went months not talking to my wife. I went months of just holding on my pain and anger and frustration inside. But for what?
Mm-hmm.
For what? For me to feel all of this guilt for something that happened?
Mm-hmm.
You know, something that I can't change anyways. And when I was done, the last thing I said to him was, "You just got to address it.
Yeah.
You can't
Mm-hmm.
just let it build up and just hold it back, because all it's going to do is hold you back with your relationship."
Mm-hmm.
And when I told him, "You just got to address it," he was like, "Okay, then I'll do that." And it was crazy because, I know them. I say he's an acquaintance because, we don't really hang out, but I can see the change in their relationship.
Yeah.
Now they have a kid. They're pushed past that. They have actually have their own kid together and stuff like that. And it's amazing to see how much God moves in somebody's life,
Mm-hmm.
even with just a couple words that you can say of your testimony that God's put you through your life. So I highly say that just get ready, because you will have a chance to pour out your testimony into somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I would highly suggest that you get ready, because I truly feel that it's going to be not just a small crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, like, uh, I'm just saying, hold on, because I really feel like God calls you to do way more than you think that He calls you
Mm-hmm.
to do. But, so we'll move on, and I will ask you, how do you address people who try to use your past against you?
Oh. Um, that's a hard one because it depends on the person. If it's somebody that I don't know very well and they want to bring up, a past mistake or a memory, as you would put it, I handle it that like more with grace when it's somebody that I don't really talk to all the time, um, or somebody who is just maybe trying to have conversation, and the only way they feel that they can relate to me is by bringing up something that we either did together or something from my past, just because we don't have anything in common now, because maybe we don't hang out, maybe we don't talk, maybe we're just having small conversation because we're stuck in a line together, or you know we're in a room together. um, so I think I handle those conversations more with grace because I know where God's pulled me from. I know the things that I did, and I know the things that I would never do again. And those people that don't know me don't know that. And it gives me the opportunity to tell them.
Mm.
Yeah, those times in the moment may have been fun. Those times in the moment may have been what was our glue, you know, but I'm not that person anymore. And I think I'm able to tell them that with love instead of lashing out and being like, well, don't use my past against me. Don't bring that up. Because in all reality, our past matters. It creates our testimonies, it creates conversations to have with somebody that you may not have got to use before. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Like they bring up something you guys used to do together, and you can be like, well, yeah, I did that, but let me tell you about my life now. And I feel like with people I don't know, um, I do it very gracefully, and I try to at least. Um, Now, if it's like somebody trying to nitpick or be like, well, you weren't always a Christian, or you did this in your past. How can you say you love Jesus? Then I get a little more hostile. And I'm like, well, you can't bring my past back because it's gone. You can't say I'm not the person I am today because of my past. Because I have a Father who brought me out of those things and threw all of those away. Mm-hmm. And so, with people that I do know, and that do know me very well, a lot of the times it's usually jabs. It's usually, well, you think you're just a holy roller now, but you did this. Okay. Why can't I be a holy roller now, even though I did that? Can't God bring you out of everything? And that's, I kind of get like a snotty attitude towards him, because you know my life. You know me. You have watched it unfold before your eyes. And I think it's more hurtful when it's people who are close to you, because you've been there. You've said, oh, I'm here for ABC. You know, you're going through this, you're going through that. Oh, I love the life you're living now. But then you want to bring up something I used to do when I make a mistake, or you want to bring up something I used to do when I don't know what to call it. I don't even know what to call it. I feel like the people who do this, who are hateful about your past and hateful, is them dealing with inner issues that they don't know how to get through, but they've watched you do it. Or it's people who think she's got to be fake. She's got to be.
There's something hidden.
Yeah, she's done way too many things in her past. There's no way she is who she says she is now.
Yeah, I love it. I love when people bring it up.
Not me.
Oh, I love it, because I'm like, yeah, I did do that, bro. You are right, dude. But that shows you how far God's brought me.
Yeah.
You know, every time somebody, oh man, I watched you choke somebody. You're right. I did do that, man. I don't do that no more.
Yeah.
Unless the occasion calls for it, you know, because God said, even if you read the Bible, there is righteous anger.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, I'm not an alcoholic. Yeah. I don't drink anymore. You know, that's old. I don't do that no more.
Yeah.
And when somebody's like, well, I remember when you used to come out and go to the bar and stuff like that with us, and you used to have anger problems. Yeah, guess what? God brought me from that. That's not me no more. No. I'm nothing like, I literally, and you know this, I literally have a guy told me, bro, you are 100% different.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do love when people say that. And I think it baffles them when you just say, thank you for noticing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy you noticed.
Yeah. And like there's been times where people will say it in a condescending way. They're like, you're different. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah. And they're like, wait,
hold up.
Like, no, that was supposed to be an insult. You're different than the person I used to know. But yeah.
I'm ecstatic that you said I'm different, because I don't want to be. That person died years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I would say people I don't know, I handle with grace. People I do know, I'm a little more hostile with them.
Okay, so it's crazy that you kind of hinted around this question earlier, but how do you separate yourself to have a one-on-one time with God?
Well, I'm not the early riser, coffee on the porch. I'm not open my Bible, God speak to me. I wish I was. I wish I could get up before the kids and, sit on my front porch with a Bible and my study and whatever I'm going over, that week or whatever, and just have my hour. That's not how I roll. That's just not how I roll. And I think that God's okay with that, because I'm very intentional when it comes to when and where I speak to God. And I'm very intentional on that being every day. And some people may not see it because I'm not the sit at my table for an hour and read my Bible and listen to worship music, but everybody's different. And so for me, there are times where I'll pull in the driveway and a song will come on and God will say, don't get out of the car. And I'll sit in there for a couple hours and cry while my kids are riding their bikes or playing in the front yard or watching a movie. And sometimes my husband will pull in the driveway and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, having a moment. Can you go away? Because it's me and God. There's been times where I know you've gotten frustrated where I'm like, can you just, I'm having a moment. And you're like, ugh, yeah. But the steering wheel of my car it's anointed or something. Whoever had the car before me must have done a lot of worshiping in there, because I just feel God's presence in my car. And when I'm driving, if nobody's talking to me, I'm usually praying, or I'm talking to God, or I'm listening to worship music, and I often use worship music as a prayer. A lot of people will be like, well, worship music isn't supposed to be about you, isn't supposed to. They're right. Worship music isn't supposed to be about me, but some of the songs that kind of say, things about a person's life where they're saying thank you to God, I use those as prayers, because a lot of times I can relate to those songs. They may not be, Power in the Blood or, the old doxology songs, but they're powerful prayers. And if I use those, I feel like if I use those as a prayer for myself, that's okay. And oftentimes I'll be doing that in my car. Another place is my shower. It's not very often that I get a shower alone. But when I do, most of the time I'm crying, worshiping, praying, crying some more. And that's just where God meets me sometimes. And that's okay too. But I am very intentional about whether that's, before I hop out of bed, or if it's right before I fall asleep. Sometimes I'll fall asleep talking to God. And I wonder if he's ever like, wonder what she was going to say, because I'll be mid-sentence. And then I don't remember. No. I'm sure he knows what I was going to say. But it's funny to think, you're mid-conversation, and then you wake up in the morning and you're like, I didn't finish what I was saying. But yeah, I had those two spots, and the altar at church. If I'm really feeling a need, sometimes I'll go down if I really am needing guidance. But most of the time when I go down there, it's a thankful altar call. It really is. Especially if it's not a legit, pastor said, if you need prayer for da-da-da-da-da, come down. If it's just me during worship service going to the altar, a lot of the times I'm just there to thank him for everything that he's given me, for my life, my kids, my husband, for my non-kids, Kinsley. I thank him for her all the time. And I've told her before, she's a little answered prayer. She has no idea. But so those spots is where I find the most quiet time. Those are my quiet places.
I think people misconstrue what quiet places really are, because people
Definitely. Yeah.
always think that, I've said this before on videos, is people really think that, when they say, oh, go to your war room, they have to have a map drawn on the wall with their
Yeah.
prayer lines drawn out, and this is our war plan. That's crush Satan,
Yeah.
And in all actuality is when you're going to your war room, man, for me personally, my war room's everywhere I'm going, because 95% chances, even if you're talking to me, I'm probably praying while I'm talking to you in my head, because um, most of my war that I fight is in my head, like all the time, 24/7, and some people will understand that, and a lot of people won't.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that people misconstrue that, and I would like to tell everybody that it's okay to not have or to have unorthodox prayer rooms.
Yeah.
You, like you said, behind your steering wheel, in the shower, your work area, at home, you playing video games. I wouldn't suggest being sidetracked, and try to be focused. But if that's the only time you have is while you're working, you use that time wisely. Yeah. Get in touch with God.
Yeah. I would say it needs to be a place that is peaceful. You wouldn't think behind the steering wheel would be peaceful, but it's oddly peaceful. Sitting in my front yard, I usually have the door open, worship music playing. My kids, I hear them laughing and giggling and playing. It's just peaceful.
See, like at work, I can put headphones in, listening to praise and worship music while I'm working, and just, God, I just thank you for everything that you're doing, and especially if I'm in the test room, no one's in there but me and God. So, like you said, it can be anywhere.
It can.
This one is probably one of the harder questions to me, and this is the second to last question. Do you think, or how important do you think it is to be real with your youth kids?
Oh, I think that it is very important, because I remember growing up and having, youth pastors. Mark, he was an amazing youth pastor, and I legit thought he walked on water. And that's not to say he didn't teach us, show us his real life. I probably wasn't paying attention, honestly. Sorry, Mark. But I do believe that it's very important for us to be real. These kids need to know that we have lives, that we're not, what would you call them, like
cookie cutter Christians?
No, like, what is the game related word where it's the character in your game that's always there?
Oh, simulated.
Yeah, but what is it called?
MPG, or non-player.
Yes.
Character.
So
NPC.
I feel like they think that that's us. That when they walk out of that building, we just sit there and wait until they come back. Like, we don't live lives. We don't have pasts. We don't sin. Like, we try not to, but we do. And we need to be honest and real about that, because we don't need to raise a generation that thinks they have to be perfect. Do we want them to strive to be perfect? Obviously. But we want them to know that when they do fail, there's a father to run to. Just like we have to. That just because we're adults does not mean that we don't trip and fall on our face and God has to help us back up. they need to know that we have lives and that we, we have our issues too. And it could be something that could relate to what they're going through. And that's why we're there to help. And so I fully, firmly believe that we need to be as transparent as possible. We don't need to hide behind the facade of, well, I've been a Christian so long, you'll get there one day. No. Show these kids who you are and what you've come from. Because some of them are living your exact life at their age. And they feel like their life is in ruins and it's hopeless. They need to know that I can get to this point. Whether it's sooner than you did or later than you did, they can get there. And only we can help them with that by being honest with them.
Well, and it's like that's one of the things, and me and my dad just talk about this all the time, is generational curses, right?
Yeah.
People underestimate generational curses, and
yes.
and those things ain't no joke. I got cold chills as soon as I just said that, because that even generational curses don't want you talking about them, because it's a battle that you have to fight that you didn't even start fighting.
Yeah.
It's been going on for
decades.
Guess what? You're automatically in the ring as soon as you're born. But the awesome thing about it is once you choose Jesus,
right,
the fight ain't even yours no more.
Right.
Like, now you got somebody that's bigger than anything that you could face.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that, like, if I can show these kids anything, is guess what? I had alcoholism in my family. Mm-hmm. Guess who got to break that generational curse in my family? Me. My mom and dad. We all get to stand up against that generational curse in our family, because we said no more. Yeah. My dad had to stand up against witchcraft because that was a generational curse in his family. Yeah. Passed down from his mom, and she tried to pass it down to him, and he said no. Yeah. It's crazy how much stuff that you have to stand up against. Yeah. And people underestimate it. And when you can actually tell kids that, hey, guess what? This is real life, and get ready to fight. And guess what? Once you choose Jesus, you ain't fighting alone, and you never have to fight alone again. Right. And they're like, I'm not by myself. Yeah. That's one of the things that I think the devil feeds on the most, is making you feel like you're all alone. Yes, definitely. Making you feel like no one can help you. Your mom and daddy can't help you. Your brother or sister can't help you. You're on this island by yourself. Yeah. And he plays on it. Mm-hmm. And I find that, and even when we had our miscarriage, that was one of the things that I felt so heavily, that I was by myself, and I just wallowed in it, And it was crazy, because once I realized that I wasn't by myself, it was like a sucker punch from that I'd never seen coming. And it was like a light bulb went off. Oh, what? Why did I ever think I was by myself? Because you were there with me. All of these people were here to back me up the whole time. And I was just pushing everybody away. Yeah. I was wallowing in my own self-pity. But I had to make the choice, No one else could make it for me. Yeah. And that's one of the things that, we have to learn to be real with these kids, and show them that, hey, until I can't make this choice for you. Yeah. Until you make this choice, you're going to be struggling. Yeah. And I think when we try and preach, generational curses, how we can break them, we often miss the point where they have to be intentional about it. Yeah.
You can't fall back on, well, my family did it. I gave it to God, but it's just in my blood. No. The second you drop that and you're intentional, is the desire still going to be there? Yeah, it is, because
Mm-hmm.
Satan is the want, or the, I'm lost for a word, but is the want going to be there? Yes. And you have to fight those wants and desires. You have to be intentional with fighting, because yes, God can remove that curse from your life like that, like that. But there's temptation. There's going to be temptation from people you don't even expect it from. Family, friends, um, people you thought you could trust, people you thought you could confide in. There's going to be temptation. Well, your dad was like that. Yeah, my dad was like that, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I dropped it. And you have to set up boundaries when it comes to generational curse. You really do. Because when Satan knows he's had a hold on so many generations behind you, he's going to fight like crazy to keep you. So you have to set up those boundaries with certain people, certain places, certain situations, to keep those temptations at an all-time low. Or else you'll be fighting a different type of battle in your own brain. Well, Pastor Ricky or Pastor Jeff told me I could get rid of this generational curse if I gave it to God. But these people are telling me I can't. These people are pushing it onto me. Be intentional.
And that's one
Set
of the
those
things.
walls.
Well, that's one of the things that I've learned was like when I finally gave up alcohol, um, it was like when I finally was like, God, I am done,
Mm-hmm.
and I was truly done.
Yeah.
He was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "I'm done." He's like, "All right, well, you got to let this go, this go, this go, and this
Yeah.
go." And
It's
I was
going to
like,
come with sacrifices.
"Yeah." But the awesome thing is this is the amazing part about the sacrifices, though, is once you're like, deal.
Yeah.
Once you let those things go, I don't
The desire.
I don't want it. Like, because you're looking at it like, man, if I touch that, everything else is coming back.
Yeah.
I don't want none of that. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. When he takes that desire from you, it's like it's like a it's almost like a punch to the gut, because you're like, how did I want those things for so long, and now I'm just like, no thank you.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't want that.
And it I don't know what I was saying. I got distracted.
So
But yeah, so the temptation will still be there. But you have to be intentional about dropping everything. That curse, it needs intentionality, and if you want it gone, you have to be the person to do it. You don't want your kids to deal with it, you have to be able to stop it in its footsteps.
all right, we'll end this episode with this last question. What would be your advice for somebody who is in ministry leading or starting out in ministry leading?
I would say my advice is to always pray about every step you make. Every step, no matter what it is. You need to change the light bulbs in your youth building, pray about it. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Everything in your ministry is for a reason. And without God in it, your ministry is for you. So always pray, always seek the guidance of God, and be 100% that you're doing what He wants you to do in that ministry, so it does not become about you. Because so often you will see a ministry that's thriving, but it has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with what God wanted them to do. It has a lot to do with what they wanted to do. And it was like, well, I'm glorifying God meanwhile, but it's okay if I make these changes to God's plan for me. And so I would say pray every step of the way. Seek His guidance. Know that you are 100% doing what He wants you to do for that ministry, and not what you want to do in that ministry, and not what somebody else did in the past with that ministry. Because we get into that too. We want to do so much what our old youth pastors did. We want to do so much what youth pastor of so-and-so church does. But we're not that ministry. We're a ministry that God has put into our place at our time for a reason. And we have to pray about it and seek what He wants us to do for Him. And if we don't do that, our ministry means nothing. It's just fancy words, fancy lights, and praise music.
Amen. Thank you for being on the show. I love all your ministry, and I love you.
Love you.
Well, thank y'all guys for coming back. Come back again next week. We will be back in Oklahoma with another amazing guest.